So I just want to say thank you again to Catalyst Ranch for hosting these events. The space is beautiful, so if you do have some time afterwards, definitely tour around, take a look at the space. How many of you were here last night for the guys versus gals? All right, yeah. So clearly the women were the winner, right? No, it's all in good balance. So thanks for coming tonight, everyone. And Social Media Week has been an exceptional week thus far, and there's a lot of events coming up. So definitely keep posted. They do open up some spots as days go on. A lot of events are closed, but people do cancel. So if they know they're not going to make it, so if there's something that you've been really trying to get to, email the presenter or check it out again because slots are opening and closing every hour. These things change a lot. So definitely keep an eye out on socialmediaweek.org. So I'm excited about this presentation tonight because there's always a lot of conversation about what's right and wrong in social media. Am I spending the right amount of time? Am I getting the most out of the time I'm spending? And the big ROI question, of course. So I'm excited to present about some of the metrics that will really help you identify that in your social media efforts so that you can really zone in on what's important and make sure that you are making the most out of your efforts. So as Meredith said, feel free to tweet at SMW Metrics, hashtag SMW Chicago, and that's my Twitter handle there, and that for Catalyst Ranch as well, so keep connected there during and after the event. So with that, we'll get started. First, I want to talk about why we should measure. So first of all, anyone, raise their hands in the room, how many people are actively measuring the results of your social media activities? Awesome. Good, good. And how frequently, like on a monthly basis, most of you taking a look at that? Quarterly? Yeah. Daily? Yeah. Oh, good, good. Okay, great. So we'll get into some more details about what everyone is looking at and how you can really leverage some of the free tools that are out there to get a lot of really great information. So why do we do this? Well, we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on what is working and what isn't working. And literally even down to post-level information, you can really start to get an idea of what's working in your social media efforts, the things that you should continue to do, some of the things that maybe you should not continue to do. Really making sure that you're meeting the needs and demands of your customer. And this is a little bit softer than some of the statistics that you can look at, but it's really going to give you a good idea of if you're responding. The sentiment that you're going to find is going to show you whether or not you're acknowledging what they're responding about, what they're sharing, their feedback they're giving you. And thus allowing you to improve the products and services that you're offering. So really looking at these measures, what people are saying, and the results is the only way you're really going to identify how to improve all of those things. And the one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily agree with off the bat is that it really is going to build time efficiency. To study your metrics is going to save you time because you'll know what is working and you will stop spending your time on those things that are not successful. So a lot of times we don't want to spend time planning. We don't want to spend time on numbers. We just want to do, or we offload something to someone and just do it. But we want to make sure that if you're paying somebody for that time, that it's working. So it really is going to increase your productivity and give you more time in your daily social media activities. And then creating agility in your strategy. And so what I mean by that is, first of all, how many of you created a social media strategy before implementing? Awesome. Good. A lot of people don't, and that's okay if you didn't raise your hand because it's a common thing. But definitely strategy is important from the start. And what this means in creating agility and strategy is that if you have a strategy and you start to look at your statistics, the measures that you've set in place, and you see that they're not aligning, that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, this was our plan, it's not working, what do we do differently next month? And so part of that measurement process should be sitting down with that strategy again and changing it, shifting it as warranted by the numbers. So strategy always changes. It's not something that you put together and then it just stays there static. It evolves along with the numbers. And then, of course, that big ROI question. And ROE, that's return on effort. So ROI, it is the big question. So many people, especially at large organizations, if someone's trying to introduce to their C-level, we must do social media, and they're still resisting. They want to say, what's the ROI in social media? Well, you just can't answer that question, right? It's different for every industry. There's people out there saying things like a Facebook like is worth $2.25. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that, and how can you apply that to Zappos or American Airlines or the boutique purse store down the street. You really can't. And so that's why a lot of these things that you can look at will really tell you what your return on that effort is, as opposed to specifically always just looking at the ROI number. A lot about social media really is about just having faith in the fact that it's working and identifying other sources that are letting you know, yes, people are buying from the efforts that I'm doing in social media. How many of you are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk? Yeah, no, few. Definitely recommend taking a look at him, following him. If you just put in Gary V on Google, you'll find him. So that makes it a lot easier than trying to spell his last name. His Twitter handle, Gary VEE. He is an exceptional story in using social media. And he's someone, he actually has a keynote that's called, "What's the ROI of My Grandmother?" Because he's someone who created an extraordinarily successful business, took a wine business from minimal to about $40 million using a combination of YouTube and Twitter. And while he understands that there's some direct ROI in those social media activities, he also understands that a lot of it came from the soft activities, the engagement, the customer relationships. Sort of the premise of that keynote is, what's the ROI of my grandmother? Well, if someone had asked him 10, 15 years ago that question, he could not have quantified the fact that his grandmother is who instilled entrepreneurial mindset in him, or business ethic, or integrity, or the drive that he has today. But he credits her with that success because of his upbringing. So thus, the ROI of grandma for him is about $40 million and still growing very rapidly. So return on effort, that's where that really comes from. Oh, also, I'll do some time for Q&A after. I want to get through a lot of information throughout the course of the hour, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A afterwards. So if you do have some, definitely take note or tweet them. If we don't get to them today in the session, I'll make sure to respond to you on Twitter or wherever you might pose those questions to. So quickly, a little bit about me, just to give you guys some context about why am I here and what do I know about this and what's my experience with this. So I spent about 16 years in management consulting in the tech world, some startup companies from startup to disillusion in some cases. Always involved in technology, web product, but also strategy and really taking some smaller companies, building the foundation of some of the organizations that now are really important to social media. Initially, social media, really people thought about sales and marketing, but there's a lot of customer service, and here with metrics, a lot of the business intelligence. I spent a lot of time working with those kinds of organizations, and so that's kind of why I have a love for some of the numbers and what they show, that a lot of people aren't big fans of those. So that's why I like to dig into them, and if I can accelerate that for other people, then that's fun for me. So I started Soaring Solutions in 2009, really to bring that strategic foundation to social media and really building a platform and a plan for people so that they could be successful with it, because social media did take off so quickly that many companies and many individuals just started using it. Well, I got to get out there, I've got to use it. So it's the strategy and the plan that really helps you succeed, and that's what I love doing for people. So overall, I'm a lover of technology, social media, finding the meaning in the numbers, and also the meaning in your business, because when you bring that meaning in your business and what you're passionate about, and you tie that together into your strategy and the message you put out there in social media, that's going to create a lot of success as well. So my mission is really to eliminate the unsuccessful and irritating random acts of social media. And this is kind of what comes to my mind visually when I think of what that is. It's either the action of just shooting all those arrows hundreds at a time into the target because you're hoping someone's going to see my message, someone's going to click on my link, someone's going to buy this. Or often you might actually feel like the target. How many of you feel like that target that just spam and links and things are coming at you? So it really helps on both sides of the fence. So that's what we want to put a stop to. And that's why strategy is so important. And the success measures that we're going to talk about today are one small component of putting a successful social media strategy together. Full strategy is going to cover things from audience identification to your brand, your message, reputation management. Today we'll focus on how you can identify and then measure that your strategy is successful when you're implementing those tactics. So what you want to do with that strategy when it comes to the success measures is really aligning those goals from social media to your overall business objectives. So what is the objective and mission of your business as a whole? And how is social media going to help you achieve that? So we really want to start from the top down, and this is often what's missing in a social media implementation. And then taking it down to identifying those key performance indicators. And that's going to be different for every business. This is something else that people often want a blanket answer to. What are the best KPIs I can use for my strategy? What I can measure? Well, it depends. That's going to be different. Again, if you're a large Fortune 500 company, or if you're a masseuse, or if you're selling books, or if you're selling services or online information products, it's all going to be very different. And so that's why the strategy has to be unique to you and your business. And then identifying those segments. And this is something we'll get a little bit more into specifically with the numbers that you're looking at. But the segments could be demographics. It could be that you have certain products and services that are catered to a certain demographic, and then a different product or service that's catered to a different demographic, geographically, individuals, or it could be products versus services. Online services. So the segmentation is also going to go from all of your audience identification as well as the activities that you're doing online and social media. So you want to identify that up front so you know what you're looking for and you know where you're putting information out to. And then again, that big ROI versus ROE question. So always going to be there. You want to identify some goals that you're getting specifically from social media, but you also want to put that in terms of amplification. Other businesses, other individuals amplifying your brand and evangelizing you, because you are going to get momentum out of that. Those are the things that may be a little bit more difficult to tie back to an income number, but you definitely want to plan that in your strategy as well. Those are the things that you can still look out for in the metrics that you're using. So, and that's when we get to a simpler picture of really meeting the target, hitting the bullseye with those goals. So what are some questions that you can ask yourself? How many people in here are your own business owner or a small business partnership? Yeah, entrepreneurs. How many of you are with a larger organization featuring for a marketing department or a team? Okay, great. So this is going to be very different for all of you based on where you're at with that business. Any business, large or small, it could be awareness building. So that might be your first set of goals. If you're a new company, you may just really be saying, hey, I want people to know who I am. You can't expect somebody to buy something from you if they don't know who you are yet. I worked with a client once who was trying to establish a persona, and nobody knew who he was, and he said, I want 20,000 Facebook likes by the end of the month. Well, no one knows who you are. That's great, but what are you going to get out of that, and how are you going to get to them, especially without advertising? So to think about that awareness building and what that plan and what those steps are going to be. Maybe you're launching a new product. Ooh, closer to that. Maybe you're launching a new product, rebranding yourself. You might be in a recession phase of your business. Unfortunately, that's pretty common right now. And using social media might be a really powerful way to help you shift that. If you're in a recession phase, you're not going to spend $1 million on a 30-second ad during a television show. But you can take that budget, reduce that, and move it over to social media so that you can maybe bring that company back, rebrand, and shift. So all of these are examples of questions to ask, things to talk about, but you could have combinations of the two, of several of them as well. So you may be in a recession phase, but you may, because of that, be rebranding. So some of these things you might also tie together, link them up to create what that strategic plan is going to be, and then what those goals are that come from that. So once you've identified that, you want to take a look more specifically at what that means for the measures that you're going to establish in your strategy. So do you sell products, services? Maybe you sell both. Is one an upsell to the other? The other thing might be, are you doing commerce online? How many of you are selling something on a website? Yeah. And how many of you are also selling that on mobile devices? Couple. So yeah, these are the things that you really want to take a look at, because that's going to shift your strategy. Am I just selling from my website? Do I have a Facebook page that's also selling? Are people going to also possibly click over to mobile and need to be able to purchase from an iPad or some other kind of device? And that's all relevant to the statistics, because you want to be able to look at those things to identify how many are taking those actions and if they're successful with them. So those random acts of social media marketing are not going to help you get there. The other thing maybe you're not selling anything online at all. How many of you are just looking for lead generation, building a list? Yeah, so that's also very common. If you're a speaker or a teacher or a trainer, you might just be trying to build a list from your social media efforts. You might not actually have any commerce that's online. So those numbers and the things that you look at are going to be very different for that kind of activity than the ones where you've got an e-commerce product online. Affiliate programs. There's a lot of affiliate programs out there. So if you're doing that, you want to know and you want to put in your success measures how those affiliates are doing. This is going to help you pay those affiliates or help them help you better if they're not succeeding in bringing you business. And then finally, a big question for people, businesses of all size, is what do you have the capacity to measure? And that could be your human resources, that could be your financial resources, because some companies are spending $5, $10, $20,000 on software applications to help them automate and measure. I think for most of us in the room, we don't really have the capacity to do that. So we're looking at the things I'm going to talk about today, like Google Analytics and Facebook Insights and YouTube. They're all free. And there's other tools too that maybe aren't free, but they're maybe if you give up a couple lattes a month, you've paid for it. So other things larger organizations may take a look at is if you have a large-scale e-commerce offering and you're a big Fortune 500 company, you might be looking at using a very high-scale tool like Radian 6 and hiring IT people and building a business intelligence team with things like social scientists that are looking at statistics every day. So it's going to be very different depending on the kind of organization that you're in. So see, these are some of the things you want to ask yourself in the process of developing that strategy. So for those of you who have developed a strategy, a lot of you raised your hand earlier about that. Did you go through some of that process and you have a lot of that identified in there, or might this be something that you go back to that's in there? Yes? Yeah, some of you, yeah, awesome. So back to what we've called this presentation, vanity metrics versus success metrics. So vanity metrics, they're fun, they feel good. Everyone likes when someone likes your Facebook post, right? You like when you put a picture up or something about an event or you say something witty and people like it. We like that. It feels good. We talked about that a lot last night at the Guys versus Gals. Yes, even the men admitted to loving when someone likes their picture or something they post online. So it feels great. So the vanity metric might be Facebook likes, YouTube views and likes, website traffic numbers. This has changed a lot with the foundation. Really, so many websites are blog-based, and that really changes what traffic might mean to you, if it's an e-commerce site, a blog site. So traffic still kind of falls into that vanity metric category. And Twitter followers. Oh, there's so many people out there saying, pay me $300 and I'll get you 20,000 Twitter followers by the time you wake up in the morning. Great. They're not real people, or they're spammers. They're not people who are going to engage with your content. And so that's why we really want to look at quality over quantity here. And that's kind of what the vanity metric gets at, is more of that quantity that may not really be getting you what you're looking for out of social media. So we all know that likes feel good. I'm dating myself with this one, right? But some of you get it, right? It still stands, though. It was a very popular thing that went around back in the day, and then actually a lot of people are still referencing it with social media because that's kind of what it feels like, right? You like me, you like my post, you like my picture, you like my cat video. It's very exciting. It's fun at a personal level, and it's fun at a business level as well, but it's not really necessarily getting you to that ROI or ROE. But it can be big, and it depends, again, on your business. Something like likes, vanity metrics, could get you very far because there is now actually a Guinness Book World Record for YouTube likes, like for this guy. So, yeah, this guy went mad viral. So you talk about going viral. Viral is not a strategy. Eric Qualman at his keynote this week talked about the fact that viral is not a strategy. It can be very successful, yes. But you want to know, if you're creating a video and you're doing a campaign and you want it to go viral, why though? What is that going to do for you? For this guy, sometimes it just happens, right? So we ought to think about that process that happens though. How does that create money and ROI? And whoop, go back here. The cycle, typically, online or anywhere in marketing, first you're going to have that brand awareness. And then people are going to decide they like your brand or what you're talking about or what you're offering. And then they're going to say, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That's going to help me. That's going to serve me. That's going to serve my business. I think I want that. Let me investigate the prices and do a little analysis. And okay, yeah, I think I'm going to buy that. And then when they buy it and they really enjoy it and they love it and it's working for them, then they might go out there on social media and amplify your brand because they love working with it and they love your product, they love your services. And then hopefully they're loyal. And that's what we don't know yet with Psy, right? Clearly it worked for Bieber. Very loyal following. He's still out there doing that. And that comes from that viral YouTube video and the likes and the sharing. But we don't know yet with Psy if that loyalty is there. But his process went from aware to amplify in minutes, days, weeks, still going. And part of that is the setup, and that is kind of the lesson in that as well, is because one, music, entertainment, it appeals to human nature, it appeals to you immediately. And when you think of a YouTube video, and you've got the video, everything is right there for you to interact with on the spot. You like it, that might go right to amplify, because if you've got your YouTube account attached to your Twitter and your Facebook, well then right away, someone's out there, oh, George is watching this video. He usually has good taste in music. What's he watching? Oh, that's great. I'm going to like it too. Shows up on Twitter. And then, right there on the spot, you're saying, this is fun. This makes me want to get off my chair and dance. I like this. It's $1.29 on iTunes. Right underneath that like button is another button that says, buy on iTunes. Okay, that's easy. So you click there. And oftentimes that's also connected to Twitter and Facebook and other news feeds. Boom, there you are amplifying again. So this is all happening immediately with that kind of situation. So if you have a product or service that works that way, that's great. I don't know that you'll have the acceleration that Psy had, but it's an example of what makes it easy for people to see you, become aware, like you, and want what you have and buy it and amplify it immediately. But traditionally, this is going to take a little bit longer. Traditionally, you have 7 touches with somebody else before they're actually going to purchase something from you. And so that's part of the plan that you want to put in place with your strategy, is how you get those 7 touches and staying engaged with people. So, and keeping them loyal as well. So let's talk about that success metric, the engagement, the buying, the evangelism, and the loyalty. Those metrics, the success metrics, are going to tell you the people that are following you, sticking with you, purchasing from you, and helping amplify your brand, which is essentially them kind of helping you be kind of a social media manager on your behalf as well, which is great. So then you've really got some exceptional returns on your social media efforts, and hopefully some ROI as well from that. So how do we look at these success metrics? There are many ways. And like I said, I'm going to talk about the free ones today because those are the best ones, especially to get started with. So how many of you are using Google Analytics? Awesome. And how many of you are checking that also on a, say, weekly basis? Yeah, okay, great. So any of you that do not have Google Analytics set up yet, that's the first thing I want you to do when you leave this session, or even now. Go ahead. Tweet a reminder to yourself. But make sure you're set up on Google, tie your web page to it, get yourselves the Google Analytics number, and if you don't know how to, send that immediately over to your web developer to get embedded into your website. From there, you will start to have access to all kinds of amazing information about your web page. So it's very easy to do. If you have a Gmail account, you just go to google.com analytics, sign in, assign your website, and get things rolling. So that's what you want to do first and foremost. So once that's done, the first thing that you're going to see really is going to be this dashboard. There's a basic dashboard out there, but you really want to customize this for yourself. So I'll go over some of the things that are on there traditionally and what they mean and how you can really leverage them a little bit differently to get the most out of the data. As I said earlier, a lot of people still just look at traffic. And that's great to get a lot of traffic to your website, to your different web properties, but that doesn't necessarily mean people are doing anything with it. So a few ways that you can analyze this a little bit differently is by segmenting. So something I mentioned earlier in the goals is identifying what some of those segments are. But before I get into that, I'm just going to go brief overview on some of the high-level things that might be more important for you to look at. One of the things you might hear a lot about, are you familiar with bounce rate? Yeah. Okay, so for the people that aren't familiar with that, the bounce rate is going to be how many times people come in and leave without going to a second page. And you certainly want that number a little bit lower, but again, in today's world, you don't always have a second page, right? Or maybe someone went to your website, they purchased right away, or they signed up right away. So it's a little bit less tangible as it used to be. Traditionally, they say 40% is a good bounce rate to go for. This is an example from an old client page, and something just to kind of give you some insight into what you might be looking for is, well, why are people bouncing? This is for a website that has several pages. So she wanted to reduce that. The first thing that jumped out at me in looking at this was you've got a bounce rate of 60% and your page load time is 5.75 seconds. Not good, right? So these are some of the things that will give you insight into why people might be leaving. Maybe it's not your content. Maybe it's that they don't want to sit there and wait. Unfortunately, average load times are still around 10 seconds, but people don't want to wait any more than about 1.75 or 2. So you really want to get that down. So if you have a very content-rich website and the load times are slow, talk to your designer, your web developer. And if it just is going to be slow because of how rich it is, then maybe you can put a feature in front of it that keeps people engaged while things are coming up to presentation. So those are some of the things you want to take a look at with respect to your website. Some other things that you can see are also down here, you've got visits and page views by mobile. Mobile is very important. A lot of people are still having trouble with their websites rendering on iPads and other tablet devices, and these are things that you want to take a look at with your web developer as well. You want to look at how frequently are people visiting your page on mobile devices, and maybe they're bouncing because they can't see anything. So you want to pull all of that stuff together so that you have everything available for people who find you on social media, traffic to your website, and you keep them there, whether it's a mobile or whatever browser it might be on. You can see all of that information at the basics with Google Analytics. So high-level stuff, but if you're not looking at that stuff yet and you're not capturing a lot of people on your website, that's definitely something for you to look at. So there's a lot more that you can do with Google Analytics as well, though, to segment and really look at those engagement numbers and see how you're keeping people. So let's take a look at goals. So how many of you are using goals in Google Analytics? Yeah, a couple? Okay. And that's pretty typical, is that a lot of people are familiar with Google Analytics but not familiar with goals or just don't understand how to use them. Because it does take some extra setup, it does take some additional work, but once you start getting into goals, that's going to help you really identify the success of your efforts and what that traffic is, who's coming from where. So there's 4 types of goals that you can use in Google Analytics, and those are URL destination, time on site, pages per visit, and events. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. So there's 4 types that you can do there, and this is something that you might take back to your strategy to identify which of these you can measure for your initial implementation. So some things for tracking in these goals. When someone buys something, of course. Someone clicks a link from another site, so that might be they're coming from social. They might be coming from an article you have on other websites. They might be coming from a referral partner. Someone subscribes to your newsletter, so if you're list building and you want to track where people are coming from specific sites to specific signups and create goals for that, you can do that as well. Downloading free reports. How many people have free reports, ebooks, white papers on their website? Yeah, great way to get list building and capture. Someone clicks a link to social, so you can see if people are coming from or going to your social sites, and when somebody subscribes to your blog. So these are all ideas for some goal tracking that you can do. Those would be considered the events. So for example, if someone downloads a report, someone subscribes to a blog, that's categorized into that event section of the different types that you can create. So that's a bit about goals. You might need to get somebody to help you with that. There are certified Google Analytics consultants. If you're somebody who wants to hire somebody like that, you can search the Google site. There's also amazing training on Google Analytics to help you walk through some of these things. But I do recommend at least get a couple of these goal types set up and start tracking them, seeing how they're helping your business. Another thing that is a great feature in Google Analytics is the traffic sources. This can also give you some great insight, again, into those social efforts. How many of you actively go out on other blogs and post comments on other blog sites or articles? No, not so much. Okay, this is really a great tactic, and this is an example. Again, I've worked with several customers who have seen great success on this. This is a great tactic that can also drive traffic to your website. And for this particular client, we really had no idea. This was actually just sort of a random thing she tried, but now because of this report, it's part of her daily tactics with her team. Because what we found was, looking at these traffic sources, you can see the websites that people came from. I blocked some of that off. But you can see the specific websites that people came from. How many visits, how many pages per visit, and average visit duration. And so she has somebody on her team doing lots of email blasts, posting tweets, Facebook posts. And what we found from that was not a lot of activity. We've just got a few visits from each. But when you look at this one in particular, while it was only 3 visits, there were 10 pages per visit, and they spent an average of almost a half hour on her website. And when we look at the Twitter one, that's 1 visit and 1 page, and they dropped off right away. So while she might have had somebody tweeting all day long or every day putting in efforts to create content there, 1 comment on a blog post got her traffic from her highest payoff audience that they spend a half hour there. So that was pretty insightful. And so now she has somebody that is tracking that and making sure that she goes out to that blog and other blogs of that type, because that was her perfect audience. With the tweets and the Facebook, it could be her audience, but it's harder to tell. So these are the sorts of things that Google Analytics can give you insight into that. However, you do need somebody to sit down and look at that. This isn't all going to be automated. You still need that human touch to come back and take a look at it and kind of figure out how this is working. So perhaps a tactic for people to try as well if you're not already. And this is another cool thing to take a look at if you're really trying to identify the return on your social efforts on social media by different platform. What this is a traffic flow report that, again, is standard in Google Analytics. You just have to click through and find it. But what you can do is you can actually identify how many people came in from each social platform. So this might be another matter of your segmentation that you're looking at, is what are your efforts in Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc., getting you as far as traffic goes through the rest of your website. What this is saying is, for example, out of 291 visits, 163 came from Facebook. Here's how many people interacted and moved on to the next page, and the next page, and the next page. And you can continue to click buttons out to the right-hand side to keep seeing how many drop-offs there were. So what's great from this that you can also get insights from is that, did people coming from Twitter hang on? What page did they come into? When did they leave? You might get an idea for if the people that are coming onto your contact page first drop off very quickly. If they're coming onto your main pages first and drop off very quickly, then that might be an idea that you need to work on your content a bit on that first web page. And if it's successful, then maybe you want to change your tweets and your Facebook posts to take people to the page that leads them to interact more and more with your website. So these are all the kinds of ideas that you can get from looking at these statistics. But again, it's going to take a person also looking at that to identify, here's the page, here's where we lost them, take a look at it, do some analysis as to why, and then fix those things so that you keep them engaged and signing up for your newsletter and buying your products. So, a quick water break here. So how many people have been anyone using the traffic source report yet? Yeah, a couple. Great. Okay. Okay, awesome. So, next one here, Google Analytics Guru. This is the man to follow. Anyone familiar with Avinash? Saw him at the Art of Marketing. He is everything you need to know about Google Analytics. Follow him on Twitter. He's got a couple of really great books on the topic. His blogs will tell you everything you need to know, but do be warned that this is a man, you'll go to his page and you might expect a blog as a few paragraphs. His blogs are like a book, but they're extremely insightful, very useful. And yes, he is the ultimate resource. He works at Google on analytics, but he's also written a couple of his own books, and he's got a couple of metrics companies of his own. And you can find some great keynotes by him on YouTube as well. And he's fun and entertaining. He makes metrics fun. He jokes around a lot. Sometimes people say he's a little bit too much, so just be warned, he might make some political comments as well, but set that aside and learn what he's got to tell you about Google Analytics. That's really what matters. So that is the man to follow. YouTube, next. How many of you use YouTube for your business? Awesome. How many of you know that there are lots of analytics in YouTube for free as well? Yeah, a few less. So this is really amazing as well. YouTube can give you some great insights into what you're doing as well as what your competitors are doing. So I'm going to use this example again, and how you can see what your video, the actions of your video, and how people are discovering, engaging with, the demographic of, and how you can also do some competitive research with this information. So over here, if you're looking at the video, you can set this on your own account to be private if you'd like. So showing you that this is public, but you can set this to be private. There is a little chart here over next to the numbers that you click on, and when you click on that, a whole set of numbers come up below it that you can get a lot of great information off, just right off the bat. So what that's going to show you is your views and discovery. So first, for this one in particular, yeah, we'd all love if we had that kind of escalation, but it shows you, from the video inception up through current, how many views it got and where they came from. So again, we're talking about these success metrics versus the vanity metrics, right? So the vanity metrics is going to be the 3 million likes on the video, or the 3 million views on the video. But this can tell you a whole lot more about this video and how people found it. You see on the first one that it's a referral from a search, right? So it tells you the terms that were searched. Now this one's obvious, right? So someone's obviously just typing in the name of the song, the video. But the way this can be very useful for you is, for example, of a client who is in the mortgage and loan industry. They can tell by looking at this that somebody would type in refinance and they found their video, or FHA and they found their video. So those are things that you can take back with you about the keywords that you're using. What keywords do you have in the description of your video, in the title of the video? So this is going to help you say, okay, if someone's searching for that word, if someone searched for shoes and they found my video, that's great. That's good information to take with you. The other side of that is if you have a competitor that has videos that are very successful on YouTube and getting them business, take a look at their statistics. If they're doing educational videos or just visual videos, music, demonstrations, speaking, whatever it might be, find your competitors in the same space, look at these statistics, and see what people are searching to find those. And then those are good keywords for you to use as well if you're not already using those. It's also going to tell you they found it on Facebook. It came from a referral. The referrals are another great thing to take a look at in YouTube because, for example, another client I have that does a lot of video, she doesn't post it a lot on Facebook as much. She's got some older ones out there, so she tries to keep it current. But what we're able to identify was that, when you watch a video and you're done watching it and it says, you like this, you might like this next one, right? So if you have your videos and your titles and your descriptions keyword optimized, you might be that one that shows up. And that's what that referral also can show you. So what we found with her videos is that people are watching other videos on a similar topic. Hers shows up in that window at the end, and people are actually clicking to watch it. So that's the importance of identifying what keywords are going to be successful, and then also putting those into the descriptions and the titles of the videos that you have. So that's where, again, this can serve you in letting you know how you're found, but it can also serve you in doing some competitive research to see what's working for other people. And then the other piece you can tell as well is how many people are watching on a mobile. So the other thing there is, again, not necessarily just the numbers, but if people are watching your videos from a mobile device, you want to make sure you're compatible. So some great information and insights in there. The next thing you're also going to see on this one is the engagement. So again, likes and dislikes, of course, are there. We don't want to focus on the dislikes. People are always going to not like something, right? So we don't want to worry about that too much. Don't let that prevent you from putting a video up. It's kind of scary at first. You know, the first time I got a thumb down on a video, I was like, oh my God, I have to take this down. This is so embarrassing. It doesn't really matter, right? It's not, this is what it helps, right? That's where the liking helps you. You feel better about that. I'm sure Sai's not worrying about the fact that he has 121,000 dislikes on his video. So, but the great part is the comments and the favorites. The likes help in the viral aspect as well, of course, too. Like I talked about, if somebody's got their YouTube account connected to Twitter and Facebook, every time they did that, or that, it might have created a Facebook post or a Twitter post. The thing about the comments, though, in particular for a business, so these kinds of numbers, of course, you're not going to do this. But for you as a business owner, when you get a comment on a YouTube video, you want to respond to that. You want to engage back with your audience. If they're thanking you for it, if they're making a comment about how great it is, or maybe they're making a comment about, hey, you know what, I tried that service and I wasn't so thrilled. You come back and thank them for that and ask them how you can do it better. So these are the things that you want to keep that engagement going and that back and forth. And that's what's telling you that people are engaged with your content. And the other thing you can see here too is the demographics of the audience. So if you see, like for example, this one is mostly males and females between the age of 13 and 24. If that's not your demographic, well then maybe you need to do something a little bit different with your video. Maybe it's just about the presentation, the things you're saying, the level of information that you're sharing with them. So taking a look at all those things will tell you if you're on target and how that's working. So these are great things to take a look at in your YouTube videos and taking back to strategy to say, next time, what can we do better? Or what's working? And keep doing more of that. So this is another really great thing you can do in YouTube is see where you're losing people. So how many people have used this where you can actually see at what point in a video somebody's dropping off? Anyone used that before? It's pretty cool. I've got some clients that were really excited to find that because they do like weekly videos. And I had one guy who was doing a weekly video and we saw the drop off immediately. So what you can tell from here in your YouTube analytics is it will actually pull up a single video at a time and it will show you. It starts with 120%, goes down to 0. It will show you how long they watched and where they dropped off. And as you're looking through this, it actually will play the video so you can hear what's being said as these things change. So with this gentleman, what he realized about 5 of his videos, he had right here and then boom, right at like 20 seconds every single time, he was just losing people. And it was just sort of the presentation. So he decided, you know what, I need to be a little bit more humorous, I need to be a little bit more expressive. So he changed some of his videos and then we started to see this stay up higher. So you want to see that consistent line. Of course, we'd love it to be 100% all of the time, right? But this is a really great tool to give you some insight into what's keeping people's attention and where are they dropping off. And it could be different things. They could be dropping off because they're bored. They could be dropping off because you took a political or religious position and that doesn't appeal to your audience. They might have dropped off because some music started to play and they couldn't hear you anymore. So what's great about this is that it plays and you can identify what that might have been at that particular point in time. So it's a really great tool to take a look if you're doing video. And if you're not doing video, definitely recommend you do that. YouTube is a Google property. It's amazing search engine optimization. And Cisco and YouTube are both saying that by 2014, 90% of traffic is going to be found from video. So if you're not doing it, don't worry about that dislike thing. Just go for it and get out there. So Facebook Insights, last one. How many of you are using Facebook Insights? Yes. All right. Most of you are using Google Analytics powerfully are using this one as well. How many people are not familiar with that that's out there? Or it's all right if you don't want to tell me. Awesome. Yeah. Well, now do. It's great stuff. Great stuff. Tons of information. Overwhelming. So I'm going to tell you what is good to look at and what you can just kind of ignore. But basically, with Facebook Insights, this is your admin panel. So just above, your timeline graphic, you're going to see this little chart here. And a lot of times people just see that and they think that's all it is. And they're like, okay, great. It looks like I'm posting a lot and people are talking and I've got some good reach. And so then they just move on. But there's a few more levels that you can really take this. And one of that is when you click on the See All, it can take you to this next page that shows you a bit more information about your likes, the potential reach you have, friends of fans. So again, reach is something that's a little soft because it's a great number, because similar to LinkedIn, telling you how much potential reach you have from the community you have, this tells you if you were, if everyone was sharing your information, how many people you could potentially get in front of. But it's not necessarily something that's always a reality of any post that you put out. Not all of these people are going to see it, but it gives you a good idea of what that potential audience is going to be. Shows you people talking about and the actual reach that you accomplish. So don't feel bad about these numbers going up and down. Again, as I work with clients, they see the red arrow and they get all upset. But just like anything in social media, if you have a couple days you're not posting or you're not very active, or if people aren't sharing, or everyone's at social media week and they're talking about social media week hashtags instead of your Facebook page, your numbers might go down. They'll shift a lot. So don't worry about that unless it's drastic. Certainly if all of a sudden one day you lose 50 people, you might want to look into that. And a note on that, actually, you might see that happen. A lot of people did early on buy Facebook likes, and quite often those were fake profiles. And it really doesn't do you any good because they're not engaging with you, and it impacts your engagement percentages. But what Facebook is doing now is they're actually onto that and they're killing those profiles. So if you do go to your Facebook Insights and you see 50 people have unliked my page today, it might be because you or somebody at your business bought likes and they're terminating those profiles. So, but otherwise, if you do see that, you can look at a post maybe to see why they did that. But I don't think that would happen to anyone here. But the next level of information, how many of you are familiar with the export function? You got everything down. So what's really great here is you've got a ton of information available to you at this export. And it can be very overwhelming. But we'll kind of narrow that down a little bit for those of you so that you can start to take a look at this and really pinpoint what's important. So that little export at the top is going to take you to this little window here where you can specify a period of time, and you can get data at a page level as well as at a post level. So what does that mean? That means at the page level, it's just generally giving you statistics about people finding your page, interacting with your page. And then at the post level, you're going to actually find information specifically about each post that you created on a daily basis. And this is something that can, again, help you identify that return on effort. How much time are you spending creating content, pictures, videos, and if people are actually paying attention to them, sharing them. So what you can actually do is create a spreadsheet for both of this level of information and analyze a lot of the statistics that come along with it. So this could be really cool to some people and really scary to others, is that it dumps out this ginormous spreadsheet on both sides, where you've got on one of them about maybe 80 columns of information and another 80 tabs that you can look through. So I'm not going to go through each of those, but so some of this, like I said, could be really great to someone. And if you have an IT team at a big organization and somebody to dump this into a data warehouse, you might want to pick some columns and do that with. But for most of us, because this is, I think, what most people feel like when they see these spreadsheets. And it is. And they're a lot of fun to look at, but let's talk about what's important so that you can actually make use of some of these things. So on the page level, let's reduce some of the overwhelm that might come along with some of these spreadsheets. You want to focus on the daily and the lifetime numbers. You're going to see all of these tabs that are weekly and 28-day, and you can just delete all of that. That's going to reduce a lot from you, a lot of work for you and what you're looking at. Because really the fact is social media work moves so quickly. You're really kind of looking at it and moving on a daily basis. So if you print this off at the end of the month, just kind of look at that lifetime number of where you're at and some of the daily statistics. And all those other tabs, just don't even worry about that for now, especially if you're just getting started. One thing that's really helpful too is the like sources, especially if you are specifically trying to drive people to your Facebook page from other social sites. Especially if you're doing e-commerce on your Facebook page and you're using Twitter, blog, YouTube to get traffic. You can tell from this like sources tab where they came from, if people came from Twitter, Facebook, a blog, a Google search. So that's something to look at. You can also take a look at likes broken down by demographic. That might be useful for you, especially if you're doing advertising. I do have a customer that hired a company that told them how great they were at advertising and that they would get them the most of the likes in their industry in this area. And as we started looking at this information, I saw they were getting tons of likes. And so it was working in that regard, but all their likes were males between the age of 13 and 18. Well, that wasn't good because they're selling houses. So needless to say, they fired that company and they're doing their own advertising. But these are some of the things that might give you insight into. Unlikes, again, just like on YouTube, don't worry about that. Again, I told you, you might see some of this because of if there were purchased likes in the past, but really you want to look more at your increase in engagement unless there's a specific post that upset people, and we'll get to that on the next slide. There's a bunch of tabs called consumers and then consumption. The consumption is really going to give you more tangible information than the consumer side is. The consumer side is going to tell you an individual interacted how at this one time. The consumption is going to give you that return activity. So you want to know if someone was coming back to a post. If someone thought, oh, they're at a networking event and someone said something about a great article you shared, they might be going back to it. Now, you're not going to know who that person is, but those numbers are going to be higher. If your consumer numbers are the same as your consumption numbers, it means people aren't coming back. But the consumption numbers are going to show you people are coming back to your page, visiting your page again, using your content and finding it relevant, and that's the important part. And then check-ins, if relevant. Obviously, if you don't have a brick and mortar space, check-ins might not be useful for you. But something that can be really helpful with check-ins if you have a space is that people do see it. And I actually, these are the things also that it helps to know. You don't necessarily know specifically if it ties back to ROI. But for example, I checked in at a co-working space that I work out of a lot. And I made a comment about how productive I was that day in that space. And about a week later, a woman from about 40 miles away had driven to that space and liked it and signed up to do a 4-week workshop series there. So that was direct ROI of me checking in to that space. So that's why if you do have that, if you do have a location, encourage people to check in and create deals around it and incentives around it. So that's where it might be important for you to look at some of those check-in numbers. So those are the page level. And the post level, these are all going to be lifetime numbers. When you look at this, it's going to tell you the number of stories created about your page post by action. So you'll actually see, did someone click it and create a story? In Facebook, anytime you interact with something, you're creating a story for your audience to look at. So did someone like it? Did somebody share it? Did somebody comment on it? And that's what you want to see, is you want to see that engagement and then you want to respond to it. And so that number of stories is gonna tell you by post what was created. So if you see a bunch of stories that have no activity and then maybe you've got a couple that you see a real peak in numbers, that's going to give you insight into the types of posts that you're creating on your Facebook page, what is capturing your audience and what isn't. So if you see something that doesn't have a lot of interaction, then maybe you stop doing that and do more of the other. And so that's where it's not just about the numbers, but it's giving you insight into the information, the material that you're sharing, so that you can do more of that. And again, consumption over consumers, and like I said, what types of content are engaging people more. So that's Facebook Insights really quick. There's tons of stuff there, but just kind of get started looking at those statistics, looking at some of these numbers, and I'll start giving you some insights into what's working on your Facebook page and keeping that community. So these are just some real quick, some other tools that you can use. Hootsuite, I think a lot of people are familiar. Who's using Hootsuite? Yeah, very popular one. You can actually do, for the lowest level version, which is like $9.99 a month, You can also add in Google Analytics and your Facebook Insights into your Twitter statistics. These get more expensive as you go. Sprout Social and Radian 6 is more for the larger organizations, but all of them have levels from individual to enterprise that you can take a look at and use to really support your social media implementation. So I'm a big fan of Hootsuite. It does a lot. You can manage your accounts as well as get a lot of great stats from it, but the Google Analytics in and of itself, you really want to use independently to get the most power out of it. And then the human. That's the best tool. Everyone needs that. So if you can't do it yourself, try to find somebody that can support you, because it's really that creative analysis. Something that I work on a lot with my customers on a monthly basis is reviewing the statistics and taking a look at what those numbers really mean. Like some of those examples with the blog, giving her that low traffic but meaningful traffic, or looking at what that advertising is doing for you. What are the demographics? So you need that person to really take a look at those things and help you do that analysis and adjust that strategy for you. So this is just a quick cartoon that kind of speaks to some of that, what people might think is productive in social media. He says, "Wow, this has been a super productive day. I updated my blog, tweeted 6 articles, pinned 8 pins, made 4 new connections on LinkedIn, and updated my Facebook status 5 times. Dude, you need to get out of the house more." So it's not about what you're doing, how many times you're posting, how many tweets you have out there. It's really what's behind it, the people that are interacting with you, and really identifying where that traffic is going or coming from and going to. And so there are a lot of really great ways that you can do that with these tools. So, from here, I just advise everyone to take a look at your social media strategy. Get that Google Analytics number into your website. If you don't have it already, start using it. Map out those goals, and then just start using these tools and just plan some time every week. It's new. If it's new for you, just start doing it maybe a half hour a week. Grow it to an hour as you start to explore the tools more and more and really see the benefit in it. You'll find the time to do that, because you will see that spending time here is saving you time elsewhere. And so that's really what it's all about, is getting that return on your social media efforts. So I'd like to open it up if anyone does have any specific questions that they want to ask about the reporting tools, anything we talked about. Yeah, that's definitely, and I say this a lot, and I know people hate it, but it depends. Because it depends on your business, and it depends on what you are doing with the interaction between your personal page and your fan page. The kind of business you are, like for example, for me, I kind of am my brand, and so I do sometimes use my personal page to leverage interaction to the fan page. But you also have to be careful with terms of service in Facebook, that you can't use your personal page for commercial use. So when you ask how much time should I spend, it depends on your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish with your fan page. But I would definitely go out there at least a couple of times a day to make sure you're checking in with your community, posting something, and responding to people that might be interacting with you. Because there's an algorithm called EdgeRank that tracks how many times you post in comparison to the engagement that you have on your page, which is going to drive how many times people see posts from your page. So you do want to be active, but you don't also need to necessarily overdo it. But that is a big question, because it does vary with strategy and business. Yes, that's a great approach, is as a business trying to gain awareness for your own. If you proactively go out onto other business fan pages and post, that's definitely, it's a tactic that you should do, because that gives you exposure to other audiences. So I think that should definitely be part of your daily practice. If you're trying to bring awareness to your business page, you would want to toggle into interacting as your brand page, and then go comment and like on the other pages. Because if you do that as yourself, it's going to take people back to your personal page. And if your strategy is that you're trying to get fan page momentum, then you want to do that as your brand page. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's because I think people like to see the like numbers. When you like a brand page as your person, it counts in the numbers. If you like a brand page as your business, it doesn't count in those numbers. So that's why people want you to like them as your personal page. Any other questions on some of the metrics and what we've discussed? Yes? You know what? I don't use a lot of groups. I don't know that there are statistics on that because I haven't really spent a lot of time in that area other than within the page itself and seeing who's interacting with you. Yeah, so that's not really something that I focus on. There's not in the insights. Um, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Try to interact. Mm. Yeah, I don't think you have those numbers there. Yeah, of what's successful or not, right? And you can only see it on the one side. So, yeah, yeah. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, I definitely use Hootsuite for that. You can use Hootsuite to take a look at your activity in Twitter. You can actually see, similar to the Facebook Insights where it shows you post by post, in Hootsuite, you can look at a report that will actually give you clicks over time, as well as showing you post by post how many clicks people interacted with there. So you can also see with that what kind of content are people looking at, what things am I not getting activity on. The thing with Hootsuite, though, is that you do need to use their URL shortener for the statistics to show up. So if you're using Hootsuite and you use the full URL or you use like a bit.ly or a tiny, it's not going to show up in the stats. You have to make sure to use the hourly shortener, and then it will track the clicks. Right. You can use a custom shortener in Hootsuite. So if you have the upgraded version of Hootsuite, you can actually create a custom URL in there and it'll still track it. You have to do that within the tool to set that up. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have struggled with that because they started early on with groups and didn't realize the benefits and some of the terms of service also in using a Facebook page. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Some is by emailing, but a lot of people turn that off in the group. So it's really just sort of messaging them in the best way you can without spamming them. So making sure that you're posting in the group about moving people over to the page. And if you have them on a mailing list, sending the mailing list out to say, we're closing this group, please move over to the page. I have a few people that have done that and from various venues. So it was just sort of consistently posting within the group, making sure people were on the mailing list and alerting them on the mailing list, and then also using the members' personal pages to communicate with each other to let them know that you're moving the group over. So those kind of a few different tactics that you can use to try and get people over. But sometimes people just like the group and they stay there. But post some things out there that have links back. So if people are engaging and you post the link, oh, for more, go here. So those are some things that people will do to shift the platform over. But if they're really dependent on the group, you don't want to necessarily close it. Yeah. Oh, to let people continue the communication. Yeah, if you closed it before really letting them know, yeah, do sort of a campaign behind it and then shut it down on them would be the best thing. Yeah. All right. Yes. Tanja. Everyone's looking for that in social media. Okay. Hmm. Mm. Okay. Well, I know Sprout Social works with other URL shorteners, so that's another tool that you could use. They also have a much more budget-minded. It's more expensive than Hootsuite, but it's still like I think the basic level is $29, $39.99 a month. and that one does work with the URL shortener of your choice. So that one wouldn't necessarily, it doesn't just have its own, like Hootsuite does. It's kind of limiting with that. Or again, if you buy the upgraded version, do the custom one. But that might be a solution to take a look at. And Sprout Social is another local Chicago business, so supporting your local small business. But that one might work out for you a little bit better. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, not overdoing it. Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of people actually, if they're just implementing a new campaign or getting started, to run some basic stats on a weekly basis, just to kind of see how their content is, what kind of dynamic the content is creating, what the engagement levels are. But then I say, definitely ongoing, at least on a monthly basis, taking a look really deep at the numbers, and that might come along with what you do on a monthly basis as far as analyzing the Google Analytics and all of your other statistics, having a meeting about your new strategic focus for the next month, looking at ROI numbers, and then also it might align with creating a content calendar for the next month. So that's kind of what you might be able to do individually or with your team, depending on the business that you're working with, is to do all of those things over the course of maybe that last week of a month to do the analytics, regroup on strategy, and then create the content calendar for the next month or quarter, get that stuff distributed. Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions? Nope. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate you guys coming to visit me here again after last night's social media week, guys versus gals. And so I love the Catalyst Ranch and having the opportunity to share all this information with you. Feel free to tweet at hashtag SMW metrics if you have any other questions. I'm also going to package the presentation, so if you guys want to have access to that, feel free to tweet me there. I'm also excited that I'm working on a membership site that's going to launch by hopefully the end of October, and that's going to include daily tips. I'll have access to daily tips on everything social media. I'll be focusing a lot on metrics and best practice as well as strategy. And so there'll be video tips, there'll be a monthly Q&A call, a monthly webinar, all part of this membership site. So if you do want to stay on alert about that and also receive my weekly social media tip that I send out, feel free to drop your card in the Panda, whatever that is over there. We got a little cookie jar animal out there on the way out, because I do want to separate it. If you just want to stay in touch, feel free to give me your card. But if you do want to go on the mailing list for the weekly tip and the membership site, feel free to drop it in there, because I'm not someone who takes a card and then spams you. I want to know explicitly if you want to be on that list or not. Otherwise, feel free to get in touch at Sue_Koch. And feel free to take some time to go ahead and network with the others, have some water, snacks, and check out Catalyst Ranch. So thanks so much for coming. Oh, and I want to thank Mike Duffy from BCR Video as well. If anybody is doing any events like this or anything you'd like to get recorded, stop by and say hi to Mike. Mike's got some cards. Or if you enjoyed the event either last night or tonight and you want to give a little video testimonial about the event or Catalyst Ranch or this presentation, feel free to stop by and visit Mike. And definitely, if you do that, plug your website, your Twitter handle, Facebook page, so you can get that out there as well. So, all right, thanks so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of Social Media Week.